I'm Dr. Miles, and after 3 decades helping men reclaim the power they thought time had stolen, I know precisely how heavy that invisible weight can feel. You smile through family dinners while a silent voice mutters, "I just don't feel like a man anymore." You turn the TV a little louder at night so no one hears the creak bed hush of intimacy you now avoid. You even catch yourself scanning pharmacy shelves, wondering whether another anonymous pill will fix what's broken. I've listened to thousands of these whispered confessions, and every single one traces back to the same hidden saboteur, a plunge in your body's natural production of nitric oxide, the spark that ushers blood into every part of you, especially where it counts. Most men are told declining circulation is an unavoidable toll of aging. They accept numbing creams, colorfully branded pills, or tight-lipped frustration. But what if reversing that suffocating sluggishness is far less complicated, and far more natural, than you have ever been told? What if one of the simplest keys is sitting in the produce aisle, just waiting for you to peel it open? Stick with me and you will discover 3 specific fruits that light up your internal traffic lights, widening vessels and renewing the steady flow that made you feel invincible at 20. These are not gimmicks or folklore. They are clinically supported triggers for nitric oxide revival, woven into the everyday diets of men who now wake eager for mornings instead of dreading them. Let me prove it with a story you will recognize. Frank is 64, a retired high school science teacher in Phoenix. He spent years pacing beside lab benches inspiring teenagers to question everything, yet never questioned why his own drive was fading into the Arizona dust. When he first sat in my office, shoulders sunk, he admitted, "I love my wife, but whenever the lights go off I freeze because I know my body won't follow through." He was eating what most would call healthy, exercising twice a week, and still felt like he had wet cement for blood. His lab work showed the usual markers: creeping blood pressure, elevated triglycerides, and an unmistakable dip in endothelial nitric oxide synthase activity, the enzyme that turns the amino acid arginine into that magic gas signaling vessels to relax. Frank's homework was almost embarrassingly simple: half a cup of ruby red pomegranate arils before breakfast every day. Pomegranate is saturated with polyphenol that not only protect nitric oxide from early breakdown but also amplify its own production line. Within 2 weeks he reported warmer hands and feet. By week 4 his blood pressure dropped 8 points systolic, and he texted me a note I still keep pinned on my bulletin board. "Last night I felt like a switch flipped back on." She noticed before I said a word. That switch was nitric oxide surging, reminding his arteries how to flex instead of clamp. Pause and picture what was really happening inside Frank. Those juice-filled seeds flooded his system with punicalagins that scavenged the oxygen radicals, normally chopping nitric oxide into inactive debris. At the same time, nitrates inside the fruit converted through friendly mouth bacteria into nitrite, then into fresh nitric oxide, almost like installing a second power plant to back up a sagging grid. His vessels dilated, blood slipped through with teenage freedom, and oxygen reached the smallest capillaries of his muscles and, yes, his most intimate tissues. Energy returned because circulation is energy. Now imagine waking tomorrow with that same inner warmth, not because you swallowed a synthetic tablet on an empty stomach, but because your breakfast reminded your body how to work the way it did during your prime. This is only the first fruit, and already you can feel the current shifting. Before I reveal the second fruit Frank now calls his secret wingman, I need you to grasp one critical truth. Tips like these are a jumpstart, not a full restoration. They fan the spark, but if the wiring behind your walls is frayed from years of stress, hidden inflammation, and hormone misfires, you still need a master plan that seals the leaks and sustains pressure day after day. Keep listening, because we are building that plan brick by brick. The next story comes from Gregory, a 67-year-old barber in Chicago whose shop chair doubles as a confessional booth for frustrated husbands. What transformed him was a fruit you might dismiss as childish summertime fare, yet its rind hides an amino acid motherlode that opens arteries like nothing else on earth. Gregory had been cutting hair for over 40 years. His hands were steady with a razor, but lately, he told me, they'd grown cold, even in July. "It's not just my hands, Doc," he admitted. "It's everything. Down there. Feels like the lights are on, but nobody's home." He chuckled when he said it, but I saw the shame behind the smile. When we reviewed his lifestyle, he ate decently, avoided fried food, even took a few over-the-counter supplements. But his energy was low, and the spark that once ignited his mornings had dimmed. I explained what I'm telling you now. This isn't about willpower or age. It's about fuel. His body wasn't producing enough nitric oxide to deliver blood where it was needed most. His arteries weren't responding the way they used to. So I asked him a simple question: when was the last time you enjoyed watermelon? He laughed again. Watermelon? That's something I give my grandkids. And that's where most men are wrong. Watermelon is one of the richest natural sources of citrulline, a non-essential amino acid that acts like a backstage crew for nitric oxide production. Once inside your body, citrulline gets converted into arginine, and from there into nitric oxide, a compound that literally tells your blood vessels to relax, expand, and flow. Gregory began eating 2 cups of fresh watermelon chunks every afternoon as a snack, preferably with the white part near the rind, where the citrulline concentration is highest. Within 3 weeks, his energy had noticeably improved. By week 6, he told me something I'll never forget. "Doc, I'm waking up with that morning pressure again, haven't felt that in years." That's nitric oxide doing its job. Even better, his blood pressure dropped by 10 points, and his heart rate variability, a key marker of cardiovascular resilience, went up by 14%. But more important than the numbers was the way Gregory carried himself. His shoulders squared. His voice had more edge, more pride. He wasn't just showing up to work, he was owning his space again. When blood flows properly, especially to your extremities and reproductive organs, you don't just feel better, you feel like yourself again. Not a dulled version. Not a memory of who you used to be. You feel present. That's the power of circulation. And fruits like watermelon aren't just snacks. They're biological instructions, reminders to your body of how it's supposed to function. Let's move on to the third fruit, one most men overlook because it doesn't carry the same exotic shine. But it might just be the most consistent nitric oxide booster in the group. Meet James, 71, a retired mechanical engineer from Asheville, North Carolina. James was meticulous. He tracked his blood pressure, his steps, even his bedtime. Yet he still felt flat. His words, not mine. It's like everything's still technically working, but the feeling behind it, gone. When I looked at his lab work, his cholesterol was borderline, but his endothelial function, that's the ability of blood vessels to respond to nitric oxide, was seriously impaired. He needed something that could enhance nitric oxide and also protect his vascular lining from further damage. So I pointed him toward a fruit rich in nitrates and antioxidants, beets. Now before you say, "I hate beets," stay with me. James hated them too, until he started blending 1 small cooked beet with frozen berries and almond milk in a morning smoothie. The change was stunning. By day 10, he noticed that post-breakfast slump had disappeared. His workouts felt smoother. And yes, his performance in the bedroom changed. It wasn't a miracle, he said. It was like I remembered how to feel again. Beets are powerful because they don't just help produce nitric oxide, they also preserve it. Rich in dietary nitrates, they're converted into nitric oxide via your salivary glands and stomach acid. On top of that, they reduce inflammation in the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels, keeping them supple and responsive. Now, if you're thinking, pomegranate, watermelon, beets, that's it? Understand this. These aren't gimmicks. They're tools. They initiate repair. They breathe life back into tired arteries. But they're still only part of the equation. Because here's the truth. Nitric oxide production declines by up to 75% between the ages of 40 and 70. Even with a perfect diet, your body may still struggle to generate enough to fully restore circulation.
Why?
Because the enzymes responsible for nitric oxide synthesis, especially enos, become less active with age, inflammation, oxidative stress, and even sleep deprivation. That's why some men try these tips and feel a bump, but then plateau. The root is deeper. That's what I explain to every man who walks into my clinic. You can eat smart, exercise, meditate, but if the machinery inside your endothelial cells is rusted, you need a strategy that restores function at the cellular level, not just treats symptoms on the surface. And that's exactly what I laid out in a free presentation I put together. It walks through a specific protocol, a full roadmap I call the blood flow restoration method, designed to reactivate your nitric oxide engine using clinical-grade ingredients and daily practices that are finally within your control. The link is right below this video. But before you go there, let me tell you the final, most critical piece of this puzzle. You see, Nitric oxide isn't just about blood flow. It's about identity. When circulation improves, everything shifts: your energy, your confidence, your mood, even your mental sharpness. I've watched men go from hopeless to unstoppable, not because they found a magic pill, but because they reclaimed control of their biology. The men who thrive in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, they don't settle. They don't say, "It's just part of aging." They challenge that narrative. They decide that their best days don't belong in the rearview mirror. And they take action, not with desperation, but with purpose. Now, I'm not here to hype you up with false hope. I'm here to guide you. I've spent over 30 years helping men break free from the silent shame of low energy, weak circulation, and lost intimacy. And I'll tell you what I tell my own patients. You are not broken. Your body is trying to do the right thing. It just needs the right environment, the right signals, the right support. And when you give it that, when you feed it with the right fruits, support it with the right habits, and, yes, activate that deeper mechanism behind nitric oxide production, your body remembers. It remembers how to heal, how to perform, how to feel alive again. So if you've been quietly struggling, if you've been watching from the sidelines while life moves on, if you felt like your best years are behind you, I'm here to tell you they're not. But they won't return on their own. You have to reach for them. You have to say, "I'm done settling." You have to act. That's why I created the free presentation linked right below this video. It walks you through the complete blood flow restoration method step by step. Not in theory, but in real, practical detail. You'll learn how to rebuild your nitric oxide engine from the inside out, without relying on prescriptions or invasive procedures. So here's my advice. Watch it. Not later. Not someday. Watch it now. Your body is waiting for a signal, and this could be it. Don't go another week, another night, another moment wondering what happened to the man you used to be. The link is right there. Click it. Reclaim your circulation. Reclaim your energy. Reclaim you.